Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5, the heart of the city here in Birmingham. After our lovely month of Ramadan and Eid, we're all eager to get back to work again and back to routine again. If you haven't been in routine, most of you, I'm sure, have continued your life as normal when you were fasting, but maybe some of you did change things and did take a break or take a few days off, and you're just getting back into the swing of things again in this lovely fine weather here in Birmingham, and I'm sure all over the country as well. So we are back in the studio doing shows. I know we weren't here with you for a few weeks over Ramadan because it was a busy time for the studio. They have all the charities that come on, and today we give them our slot to be able to talk to you about their work during that month. But we're back working at Approachable Parenting again, and we are doing our Parenting Hour each week on Unity FM 93.5. If you want to ring into us, please do so on the usual number 0121 772 8892. If you want to email the studio at unityfm.net. So that's studio at unityfm.net. And we, of course, will take any of your questions, any of your ideas, any of your comments, and we will answer them, or we will share them with our guests, our professionals, who will get back to you and answer them and give you more guidance and more support in that. So inshallah, I hope you had a good few weeks rest from listening to my voice, and that you are now eager to continue all the topics we were talking about on Parenting Hour for the last few years now. Would you believe this is our 4th anniversary? 4 years doing this show, so alhamdulillah, it's been great being with you for 4 years, and lovely feedback that we get from you and lovely interaction. So thank you, audience, for tuning in to us each week and giving us your comments and encouraging us to continue with some very valuable topics. And our audience, of course, is not just in Birmingham and the West Midlands, but we'd also like to thank all our audience down in Luton and that region who tune into Inspire FM 105.1. We know that you tune in also, and we are open to listening or hearing or responding to any of your comments, your suggestions, your questions. So please do contact us at the studio email, which is studio at unityfm.net, and the manager there will pass it on to either myself or to our guests that we come in, our professional guests, our experts that come into the studio each week to talk about their experiences, their professions, to help you understand and increase your awareness of different topics. Again, the number is 0121 772 8892. And today's topic I should talk about is something we haven't talked previously about on this show, and it's very important that we do talk about this, because I think a lot of our listeners may have experienced this themselves and not quite have known, or they may have known somebody else, a neighbour, a friend, a sister, who has gone through this. And we're talking about postpartum psychosis, which is a huge word, or 3 words there. And I know that you're going to explain that efficiently to them. So we have Katie here, that is from Postpartum Psychosis, and she is an expert by experience, and she's going to talk to us about this. So welcome, Katie. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome indeed. It's so nice having you here with us on this lovely sunny day.
Yeah.
Indeed, talking about this. So can we just break down what is postpartum psychosis first, so our listeners know what we're going to be talking about, because this might be a new word, and they might, especially if people don't speak English as a first language, think, oh, this is very medical. What is this? Will I switch off? Is this for me?
Yeah, well, postpartum means after birth.
Mm-hmm.
And then psychosis sort of means breaking of the mind. So sort of to put it into context with me, I had a very normal pregnancy, fairly long and sort of labour, but wasn't too bad, and within a few days after giving birth to my daughter, I was very poorly. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sleeping, I was having hallucinations, I was hearing sort of like messages coming from the radiators in the house, it was bonfire night at the time as well when my daughter was born, and I was very scared by the fireworks. And again, I thought there was sort of some kind of messages there. Overly talking a lot, very chatty. Just didn't sleep at all. I could not sleep every time I lay down. I just couldn't get to sleep. So by the time my daughter was 9 days old, I really was quite unwell and just behaving quite bizarrely. Like the one night my husband found me sat in our garage eating chocolate, just sat on the floor, and he said, "Oh, this isn't right." And a few days before that, he was saying the same thing, and other people, friends, family, or even my midwife, saying, "Oh, it's because she's just had a baby." Every woman, when they've just had a baby, they're not quite themselves. But my symptoms became very bizarre, and I couldn't have a normal conversation. I'd talk about one topic, then jump to something else, then to something else. So yeah, when my daughter was just 9 days old, I went to see my doctor, who then sent me to the local community mental health clinic, and it was there where they diagnosed me with postpartum psychosis. So this is an illness that affects about 1 to 2 women per 1,000, so it is quite rare. And like I say, it's can be unexplained, and it can be very sudden. Some women have it, it's linked to bipolar disorder, so some women might have it, if they've got bipolar disorder when they have their baby. But for a lot of women, it just comes completely out of the blue, and it is a serious medical condition where you do need medication for it, and generally you do need to be in hospital to make sure that you and your baby are safe.
Wow. And it's just there, I'm in shock, when you were saying that, because you're there, a healthy person, no symptoms, no history, no nothing.
Absolutely
before
nothing.
that.
No.
Then in a matter of a few days, really, and a lot of people would say, yes, sleepless nights, it's due to lack of sleep, that you're behaving like this, you're eating the chocolate because you need a bit of energy, and you just went somewhere quiet to eat that chocolate, and put it down to those reasons rather than a condition that needs treatment.
Yeah, definitely. And because it is fairly rare, we want more professionals to be aware of it, or even more mums to be aware, or even dads, so if they do see some of these symptoms coming, that it can be treated, more quicker, really. So it's quite a severe mental illness, but also one that you can recover from as well. The medication can be quite effective, and if you get the right treatment, then you can get through it. There is always a risk if you have a second child or a third child that it might happen again, but obviously if it's happened before, then measures can be put in place, and it can be a lot more controlled than compared to that first time when it is such a shock.
And the message here that it can happen quickly, but it can recover quickly as well.
Yes.
So please be aware of it. And I think for professionals, myself, even I was a midwife myself, we never got training on this, because it's something that happens afterwards when you go home.
Yes, that's very true.
You don't usually see parents like that, but it happened to you quite quickly. How soon?
Well, I was in hospital for 3 days. And I didn't really sleep very well in the hospital because, it's all noisy, isn't it, with all the babies and everything. And I guess I came home sort of when my daughter was 4 days old, and it was those next few days, really.
And it was your first baby?
Yes.
It happened to you?
Yeah.
So there was probably a lot of excitement there coming home, people visiting you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots going on. And I was struggling to breastfeed as well. That was quite a big thing for me, and I was kind of determined that I was going to do it, and it became quite an obsession, and that sort of led to me not sleeping much because I just was always trying to get my daughter to feed, and it just wasn't really happening. So and that wasn't happening, and were you worried about that? Or I think so. I think it. I felt quite a big pressure to do that, but I think that was sort of part of my illness coming, was to have an obsession. That sort of was part of the illness as well. Yeah.
So we've got a lot of listeners tuned into this who themselves may be pregnant or just had a baby, but it could be their sister, their sister-in-laws, their auntie, their neighbour that has had a baby and going through something similar, maybe like this in the first few days, and they're putting it down to, she's tired, she's exhausted from the baby, she just needs her to get her husband up more, doing more things, but it could be something serious. So the men that are listening to this, so if you're driving home and listening to this, dads, and you've just had a baby and your wife is not herself, just keep it in mind. It may not be this condition, but keep it in mind that maybe I need to observe it a bit more and ask some questions to get some answers, or ask professionals, so that I know that there is treatment here. It's not something to be ashamed of or hide away.
No.
There is treatment there.
Yeah.
So in your story, so you were day 4, you came home, didn't have much sleep, didn't sleep very well at home either, and you were saying were you caring for your baby? Was the baby feeding from you? Or?
She still was at that time. She was up until when I went into hospital when she was 9 days old. So and I was trying, looking after her sort of as much as I could, and also I'd say that the less sleep that I had, the more energy that I had. It just was sort of part of the illness, and I just felt like I wanted to be doing something all the time, and I was phoning everyone and saying, come round, whereas really, in those first few days it should be a sort of calm time and recover after the birth. And so it was quite a manic time.
And you were bringing people in, and you didn't recognise that?
No, I don't think I recognised it myself. So, and I think as well, that's something else to say about psychosis is every person that has psychosis, that their psychosis will be different. With postpartum psychosis, it'd be quite common that women might think that their child is the devil, or could think their child is the son of God, or they might, you might have delusions thinking, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to write a book. Lots of different things like that are fairly common with the psychosis.
And of course, relating that into some of our communities, they may be thinking it's a jinn, an obsession, things like this, and not actually thinking that it is a disease. And we've had lots of discussions about this on the radio over the last many years, trying to highlight mental health illness and the spiritual side of things as well. And what we always say to our listeners is, you need to get the mental health illness diagnosed, you need to go to a doctor, you need to get treatment, you need to get that sorted.
I mean, there's a lot of different mental health illnesses that women can have after they've had a baby, or even whilst they're pregnant as well. But like you say, there is a lot of help and support out there. Maybe start off with your GP or something like 111 if you're really worried. I mean, I had to go to a mother and baby unit for my treatment, and I couldn't get a bed for the first 3 weeks. So I was at just a general psychiatric ward, and then without my baby, and then I was moved to the mother and baby unit, which is in Birmingham by the QE at the Barbary Centre, and that was an excellent place to go. It was for women with any mental health problems, who were sort of quite severe, so not really well enough to be at home. And on the ward, you get your own room with a bathroom, and there's you've got a cot in there and lots of storage space. On the ward, there's nursery nurses who are there to specifically support you with your baby. I mean, when I went in, my daughter was 3.5 weeks old, and she was now being bottle fed, but I'd never given her a bottle before. So they're there to help with like developmental milestones, that kind of thing. And then you've got the different activities as well that take place on the ward. There's like cooking and things like that. So for me, that was definitely a really good place to go and sort of try and get better, but have my daughter with me as well.
And of course, if you had probably recognised it maybe a few days sooner, it might have been different.
Well, yeah, exactly. You do kind of think about that. So what was going through your husband's thoughts, if we can take it kind of from the dad's point of view, or he was there, your partner is there, he's seen these things. You said in the beginning he didn't think of anything. When did he start thinking that, okay, this may be something? I think that the night that he found me in the garage, in November, eating chocolate, he just thought, this isn't right. And then the very next day, he called my auntie, who I'm very close to, and she came over and she sat with me for a bit, and she was like, yeah, she's definitely not very well, we need to take her to see the doctor. But he found it really hard because, it's meant to be a happy time and, really exciting. You've got your new baby. And it wasn't like that. And especially when I was sectioned and in hospital, I mean, he then had to care for my daughter because obviously I wasn't there. Luckily, his mum had come to stay with us for for a few weeks, so she was a big help, because obviously he wanted to come and visit me, and then when we got moved to the mother and baby unit, that was obviously a really positive thing, and I was then with my baby, but then my husband was at home on his own, so he'd come and see us, but then he'd every evening and then have to drive and be home on his own, which was not what you expect. And I was on the unit for about 6 months altogether, because I developed bipolar disorder, which can be fairly common, as is also a depressive episode after postpartum psychosis. So I developed bipolar disorder, and I was very my mood swings were very all over the place, so they wanted to sort of stabilise me before I could come home. And that's why I'm very grateful for the mother and baby unit, because if I hadn't have had that, then I wouldn't have been with my daughter for about 7 months. So and you wonder what my bond would have been like with her.
Of course. So it's wonderful that we have those facilities here in Birmingham. In Luton, I'm sure you have other facilities down there, but I know we're really lucky here in Birmingham with great facilities.
Yeah.
That we can
there's been quite a lot of funding in women's mental, especially linked to having a baby, mental health. There's been quite a lot of new funding over the last few years. They're building 4 new mother and baby units at the moment. Well, one of them's just opened down in Devon. And then not long ago, the next wave of funding was released, and in Birmingham and Solihull we will have some kind of mental health support for women either pregnant or up to a year after birth, which is great. We've got a team at the Birmingham Women's Hospital, so you can go and have, say, your 20-week scan, and if you've got mental health problems, you also can then go and see your psychiatrist, or there's psychiatric nurses in the community as well. So I think it is really good that there has been a lot more money put into this area, because it is needed. There still are a lot of women that have problems, when they've just had the baby or when they're pregnant, and like you were saying earlier, they don't want to talk about it, so they just sort of keep it to themselves. And really, I just would encourage women to get that help, because it is out there and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like I say, people think it's the most happiest time, but it can be really hard, and it's such a change in your life to go from not having a baby to then all of a sudden having someone you need to care for, and maybe you've stopped work, and your life really has to change. So, and if you do have any mental health problems, then that just makes it even harder. But I think definitely don't be afraid to sort of stand up and say I need a bit of help.
I think it's really important to do that. It is hard. It's hard for some communities. We're talking about something that is often behind closed doors, where we're talking about mental health or well-being or emotional health. I mean, it's linked in. We're all one human being. Our head is part of our body, so it's not just the physical signs of giving birth and physically looking after ourselves that we need to be looking after. We need to be looking after our mind as well, and taking care of that.
Definitely. And that can be hard when you've got children, because they take up so much of your time. But that's why they talk a lot now, don't they, about like the 5 ways to well-being, and making sure you get enough sleep. It's all things that are really obvious to us, but I think if you've had mental health problems, it's even more so. And I think having, as a mom, like having that time for you, even if it's just an hour in a week where you go for a walk, or I don't know, you sit and watch a TV program that you love, or anything really, just to have that bit of time, I think can be really helpful.
Even coming to us in Approachable Parenting, we're actually mentioned in wave 2, so we are actually we have a specialised person working and helping to our parents to know where to come, because we want to be there for the communities that don't often understand this and think we better not tell anybody, and those poor mums are suffering in silence, which as you can see, look, I have you're so bright and bubbly here in front of me. I wish our listeners could actually see you now and see what you
nice.
Like, we've heard what you've been through, and here you are, such a wonderful person here in front of me. I would not, unless you mentioned that, I wouldn't have known
this is the
happened
thing.
to you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with mental health, is that you can't see it, and people can just pretend that they're absolutely fine, whereas inside they might be having really crippling anxiety or a very low mood, and people just can't see it, which is why you need to speak up, because otherwise a lot of people, even maybe your close friends and family, might not even be able to tell if you can sort of hide it, but it really is important to open up.
It is, definitely, and not just for yourself but for your child, as you're saying there as well. You know, you were lucky to be in a unit that you had your child there, your treatment, you were able to communicate with your child, you were able to build that bond, you were able to build that attachment that we talk about a lot on our programs, and the importance of that. And that builds the brain cells of your baby, which we need our babies to have good brain cells to be able to get on in life and good in education and looking after themselves. And it starts in the very beginning like this.
Yeah, it does.
So we need our parents to understand more of this, and how something like, it may not be quite a psychosis, but they may have even a low mood after having the baby, and think, okay, I'm not getting involved with my child, because it might be better just keep them a distance and have less interaction, rather than what you're saying of having that interaction there and having experts around that can help to have that bonding and that relationship there.
And I think for me, when I look back, like when I was suffered from my depression, which was, really awful time, having my daughter there kind of helped me with my depression, because I couldn't just lie in bed, which is what I felt like I wanted to do, because obviously she needed my attention. And at that age, she was about 1, and the babies give you so much, don't they, with their smiles and their laughter, and so that sort of really helped pull me through in a way that I had her there.
We have a very famous saying that smiling is a charity, and it's a religious quotation. And when you look at it and pull it out, that charity, because we know when you smile, the endorphins happen in your brain, and when you smile at somebody else, they do change your whole impression of yourself. You feel that smile, you want to smile back at them. So your endorphins are affected in your brain as well. So it is a charity, because it's like a wave out. It's like a ripple effect.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I'm sure that if you are someone listening now who's suffering, you're definitely not the only one. The current statistics, it was 1 in 4. It was 1 in 4 people suffer from a mental health problem, but I think it's even more people now, like 1 in 2 or 1 in 3. So you're really not on your own, and there's a lot of support out there. There's a lot of peer support groups that are available for people who want to come and talk and meet other people that are going through it, as well as there's also one-to-one peer support available as well. So like myself, I work as a peer support worker, and talk to women about their experiences and try and sort of help them by talking about what I went through, and giving hope. That hope is like such an important word in mental health and in recovery, to try and start living a meaningful life again, and sort of be happy and enjoy your baby, enjoy your children.
Because maybe when you're in that situation, everything is like a dark tunnel, and you can't see the light.
Yeah, definitely.
And what you do is say, yes, the light is here, look, and you brighten that light for them, and you brighten it bigger and bigger and bigger every time you meet.
Exactly. So, and I think that can really help.
Yeah. Definitely. So we will talk a bit more about, after the break, about your organisation. But just before we go into that, you are working with an organisation?
Yes. So I work for quite a few different places, but specifically at the moment, one of the roles I've got is with the charity Action on Postpartum Psychosis. So this is a charity that is specifically for postpartum psychosis, and they do quite a lot of different things. We've got an online forum, which is great, so people can just go and post a question, and we've got a group of volunteers that work on the forum that can answer questions, as well as other general members of the public, but there's probably sort of at least 2 questions that are posted a day, which is quite amazing, really, when you think how it's fairly rare.
So we'll come back more to that after the break, when we talk about some of the questions and things like that. So that's one of the things that you're doing.
So there's that, and then there's also one-to-one support via email as well, and they're starting to think about face-to-face. And then there's the education about postpartum psychosis as well. So we do quite a lot of work. There's lots of people like me that we're sort of called regional representatives, and we will, if there's a certain event going on, say for example a health visitors conference or midwives or GPs, anything like that, we sometimes get invited to go and speak at things like that to sort of tell our story and raise awareness and make sure that as many people know about it as possible, really. So yeah, there's lots of different things that the charity does.
Wonderful. So after the break we'll come back to some of those things and tease them out a little bit of the comments and questions that people ask. The message we want to get to you before break is that this can happen to anybody. This is not something that is we should ignore. We should be aware of it. We should be there to help people and understand where to signpost and the organisations that are happening, indeed. And we'll give you more details after the break of your organisation and where to contact it. So listeners, inshallah, as we go into a commercial break, maybe you want to take a pen and paper so that you can jot down what we're saying, jot down the organisation, jot down some details. Of course, you can always either contact me in Approachable Parenting or contact Unity FM, the studio itself, on 0121 772 8892. Leave a message there and they'll forward it to us. Or if you want to email studio@unityfm.net, and they will send it to us as well, and we will either respond to ourselves or send it to Katie in her organisation and get the proper answers and care that you need for your questions. Do join us again after this commercial break, where we'll be talking more about postpartum psychosis. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back after that commercial break. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5. My name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi, with you for the next half an hour on Parenting Hour here in the studio. Numbers are, I'm sure you know them well, 0121 772 8892, and our email is studio@unityfm.net. Our listeners in Luton are listening in on Inspire FM 105.1 FM, and we have Katie in the studio, which is today talking about postpartum psychosis. She is an expert by experience, and Katie has gone into a lot of detail about her own experience and what happened to her after having a baby, which I think, Katie, we're all so surprised that, here you are talking about that. I would never know, except you've shared your story, which is that you've gone through such a horrific time after your baby and all these things. But you're saying, thanks to the Women's Hospital here, to the Barbary Centre, to the facilities, the support we have here, because of that, and because of your husband actually initially making that call, and that you are here today and you are able to talk about this and help others.
Yeah, definitely.
And before the break, you were telling us you had a lot of different roles. You were doing many different things. So you mentioned one there about the internet, or about your website, that there's 2 messages per day that's coming in.
About that, well, it's an online forums through a website called healthunlock.com. And we've got a page which is Action on Postpartum Psychosis, and people can come on and post any questions. There's a large group of volunteers that work on the forum, as well as other people that have been on it. We get mums that come and ask questions, dads as well, or other members of the family. Once they find out maybe that their wife or partner or daughter or someone that they know has been diagnosed with postpartum psychosis, they might come across our forum and they'll ask different questions. So anything really, ranging from questions about mother and baby units, maybe they haven't been able to get access to one and they're in a general ward, or questions about medication, or even maybe side effects of medication, about recovery and how long it's sort of asking how long will it take me to sort of get back to myself. So lots of different things ranging, really, and what's really good as well is we've got a team of clinical experts. So if ever the moderators of the forum aren't quite sure about something, then they can ask. We've got a couple of psychiatrists, and we can ask questions to them and make sure that we sort of give them the right answers. So that's a really positive place.
And is that a writing? You write your message in?
Yes.
So I wonder if English is not a first language. how is there a way of speaking that message in? Do you have any facilities like that?
I'm not sure actually if there is. It may be possible to do that if somebody sort of writes that on the forum. That might be something we might be able to organise.
So the other way around that, of course, listeners, if you are tuned into this and you English is not your first language, you're not very happy or comfortable in writing English, you can always contact us in Approachable Parenting, and we can write that message in for you.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Indeed. Or we have interpreters as part of the staff as well, and we have sparklers that are our peer mentors that are trained up, and we're going to get training from you next week, so we're going to increase their knowledge of that, and they can also help in asking these questions to the forum or
definitely.
directly to you.
We've also got a few insider guides as well, which are like little booklets, ones about recovery from postpartum psychosis. We've also got a guide for partners, and we've also got a guide for planning your second pregnancy as well. So these are all on the website, but also as well, we've got hard copies. So if anybody's interested in having any of those, then if they get in touch with the radio station, then we can post those out for them. And our general website is www.app-network.org. And there's lots of information on there as well. You can look at the insider guides. It says, what the some early symptoms, frequently asked questions. There's also some personal stories on there, so sort of other women and they're sort of saying what they've experienced. There's also links to different books or resources that might be helpful, and APP also offer training as well. So like I say, I'm doing some training with West Midlands organisations at the moment, which I'm doing with Approachable Parenting next week, but also there's like day training which is on offer as well, if anybody was interested on that. So there's lots of information on the website, in the forum as well. That's something that's really good.
There's a wonderful invite to you listeners. If you are part of a madrasa, a Saturday Sunday school, after school, a halakha, a mother and baby that meet regularly, and you'd like to do something or raise awareness of this and help our parents, you can contact Kathy directly on the website, or if you send an email to us in Approachable Parenting, we can pass it on, or to studio at unityfm.net, and they will pass it on here. Studio manager will also make sure that it's passed on to Kathy. So the website again is www.app-network.org.
Yes.
Correct? Great. It's important that we get these messages out there. There's a lot of people that were listening in that probably do run different things on a voluntary basis, and as you say, it's increasing. Mental health is increasing 1 to 2 per 1,000 of people now are affected. So we need to raise awareness of that, or affected by postpartum psychosis, but in mental health in general,
definitely
the statistics is even higher.
And I think one thing that's been good, the work that we do with Action on Postpartum Psychosis, is some of the media work that we do. So some people, if they watch EastEnders, they might remember a couple of years ago, the character Stacey, she had her baby, and she had postpartum psychosis as well, and that was actually something that the charity approached EastEnders about and said, we'd really like to do this storyline, we really want to raise awareness of it. And I think at sort of the height of the story there were 11 million viewers, which is amazing if you think that maybe 11 million viewers at least had a slight insight or might have heard of postpartum psychosis. So that was really good. And then there's quite a few of us. Like last year I was in a newspaper, in the Daily Mail, telling my story, and I've also been in a women's magazine, and I've been on Radio WM a couple of times as well to talk about it. So like I say, it's very much about raising the profile of it, and it is such a severe sort of illness that can be quite scary, well, very scary, very traumatic for the family as well, and we just need more people to know about it.
And the way we know about it is talking about it, trying to raise awareness, because different people have different symptoms. As you said, you were in hospital for quite a bit of period, but others may not be in hospital for that long.
Some women, might only need to be in hospital for a month or something. You know, I think that's the thing with mental health, is that every person is different, you know, and every person will react differently to medication. Different people will need different therapies, you know, whether that be, you know, cognitive behavioural therapy or psychotherapy. You know, it's all very personal and unique, and the same with the recovery journey as well. Like everyone, it will all happen at different times, but obviously, you know, we've mentioned stigma already, and I think acceptance as well is, you know, accepting. I'd never heard of this illness, and, you know, I heard the word psychosis and I thought, you know, it's quite a scary word really, because you connect it with, you know, psychos or, you know, people that are dangerous, and it's not necessarily like that at all. But it is kind of accepting that you've had an illness, or you've got an illness, and sort of dealing with it that way.
Yeah, some of the labels that actually are on the illnesses themselves don't help, because they actually prevent people from coming forward, because, as you say, people perceive this different. And unfortunately, in some languages as well, it's similar. If you talk about mental health in general, in Urdu, the word means madness. So language is really is not helping us in trying to learn more about our mind and our well-being, and we're attached, like our head is attached to us. So, you know, we're looking after our body, we look after our spiritual bodies, our mind, body and soul. So we need to look after our mind as well.
Definitely.
We've just come out of Ramadan, where we looked after the soul quite a bit. And did a lot for our soul there. And we look after our body in general, where we're looking after eating well and doing exercise and etc. But how many of us concentrate or think about our mind?
Exactly. It is. It's really important to look after yourself in that way as well.
And of course, when you have a baby, things do change around with hormones, etc. There's a lot of change. There are a lot of things happening there, and things can be undiagnosed. So, listeners, if you know of somebody that, you know, had a baby, or things not going quite right for them, it may not be this, but come and ask, is what we're saying.
Definitely,
you could actually send an email on that forum, and it may be a different symptom, but you'll be able to go to the experts. If you didn't have the knowledge, you know where to direct them. And just ask for help, really, whether that's for yourself or whether on behalf of somebody else. Because, like I say, the help is out there. So you know, and you can get support, and you can start to feel better as well. So rather than sort of suffer in silence, definitely sort of try and speak up. So do you have people kind of messaging in, either themselves or behalf of other people, that it's not postpartum psychosis, it is something else, but they just want to kind of disclude this, that this could be?
I suppose sometimes there might be people, you know, because there's so many different symptoms that you can have in mental health. It can sometimes be hard to get a diagnosis. Occasionally we might get people that come ask questions like that, saying, this is how I'm feeling, is that the same as what you had, and you know, that kind of thing.
So what you explained it about the heater and the radiator, and you felt that they were talking to you, and it was around the bonfire time. Is there other things that happen to people? Can you give us some more other examples of maybe from other people that they might have experienced?
I think, you know, you get a lot of people that do get messages, you know, through the TV or through one, you know, which can be, you know, like hearing voices. I think I said before, you know, people have sort of delusions where they think that they're something that they're not. I think being very excited, sort of really but overly excited, is, you know, being very chatty and sociable, always on the phone. That's something that I was doing, and and your sort of mind's just racing ahead and thinking of lots of different ideas.
So that could happen to a lot of people on the phone after having a baby, telling everybody what it is.
Exactly.
And making lists of different things.
Well, I remember I was phoning people saying, come round, and if you come, bring me, I want some fizzy drink. drinks and sweets and chocolate, whereas I wasn't really like that. And that's when my husband was like, oh, that's weird, she doesn't normally have those types of thing. Again, I said about not being able to sleep or not needing any sleep, in a dream world, being in when I look back now, it was like I was in my own little world. And but yeah, there's also, you can have some quite scary symptoms as well, like listening to the voices, or being paranoid, or being very scared. Or I think you get a lot of women as well that think there's something wrong with their baby, even though a doctor might have seen the baby, or a nurse or the midwife, and they said, yep, the baby's doing really well. They still have got that fear that they're really unwell. Also as well with psychosis, you can get like low mood and feel depressed, be very worried, be very anxious, be very tearful, worried that you're not looking after your baby properly, or maybe feeling really disconnected from your baby and feeling that baby's not mine. So there's lots of different symptoms, I think, and like I said before, each person will be different. But it's just keeping a mind and just thinking, is that normal, or is that abnormal, and trying to sort of place it. But like I say, if anybody's worried, just to go and seek professional help
straight away. So your midwife is coming to you a few days after that. So if you pick up things, or if your partner pick up things, do inform your midwife, who will direct you the right way, or your health visitor, or your GP. Get that professional help there.
Definitely.
That is there. And you, in your own role, you're going around to organisations or groups of people as well, trying to inform them of this.
So it's sort of a new contract to work with specifically West Midlands organisations. So it's been funded by the West Midlands Perinatal Network. And so it's to make sure I cover the whole of the West Midlands. So thinking about Worcester and Staffordshire and Stoke and Coventry and Warwickshire. And just trying to increase training on postpartum psychosis, so whether that might be with an NHS trust, or whether it might be with an organisation like Approachable Parenting, or maybe another charity, or like you say, groups of women that they might be volunteers at a play group or something, and women come, anything really. So if anybody's interested, then I'd say get in touch with the radio station and just let me know, and we can. And
this is free of charge training. And you can work around different times, things like that. Wonderful. This sounds an offer that you can't refuse.
I know. I'm quite busy with lots of different things happening, but definitely, if anybody's interested, just let me know.
Wonderful. And if you need interpretation there, if you don't already have it, we can try and help with that interpretation also, as part of groups going out in the West Midlands too, where we cover all the West Midlands as well, so we can try and help you there in that. So listeners, this is your opportunity. We're always here trying to help you, trying to help our community to understand and grow and be there for each other, to be there and support each other, to be there and help each other. And after coming out of Ramadan, where it's such a spiritual time, where we're talking about helping each other and doing things together and be better people and better individuals, maybe now taking this one step further and actually putting it into practice. What can I do to help others there? And here I can organise a group. If I'm not part of a group together already, I can organise something. I can bring my friends, bring my neighbours, bring my colleagues, and bring you to talk to them. It will only take an hour and a half, maybe, something like this. And this information will ripple out to other people.
Hopefully,
and passed on to other people, which is really good for people to know and understand. Because even knowing that there is hope there, there's help there, I can get this treated is very powerful for people, especially for women.
Definitely.
And it's lovely having you here and talking about this. So what we're trying to do is raise awareness here. So maybe the first time that people have talked about this, and I know you're very open, Katie, about your own experience. Can I go back to that a little bit now? That happened how long ago?
Well, my daughter's 6.5 now.
6.5.
Yeah.
And she's in school?
Yes, she's in school now.
So what's your relationship now with her?
It's really good. I think, when I started to recover, which was probably, when she was just after 1, I felt quite guilty because of the time, I was so unwell, like whether I was really low or, with my bipolar being quite manic, I felt like I hadn't really looked after her as well as I could have done, especially when I was low, because obviously babies want a nice smiley mum and happy and doing lots of things, and I wasn't like that, so I did feel quite guilty about that. So if anything, I've probably put more into our relationship, and we've got a really close bond, which is really nice.
Oh, lovely. You do lots of things together.
Yeah, we're very close. Yeah, we're quite similar as well, so that helps. But yeah, we are very close.
Oh, that is really, really good. So that's a really powerful message to get across to our listeners, that you have that close relationship with your daughter. Yeah. You have other children too?
I've just got Sophia.
Just got Sophia.
Yes,
Sophia.
yeah.
Oh, what a lovely name.
Oh.
I always love Sophia as a name. So that's really lovely that you have that relationship and your closeness together, that bond together. It's not something that is going to ruin your family.
No, and I think as well that you get a lot of women when they're having mental health problems and they're scared to tell anyone, because they think, if I tell this person that I'm having these thoughts or those thoughts, they worry that, social services will get involved and that's it, the baby will be taken away. And I think that's something that's really important to remember, that, that doesn't necessarily happen at all. So that's another sort of barrier, I think, for people. And then I think thinking about recovery as well, it can take time. I mean, it took me a good sort of a couple of years till I sort of felt I was sort of starting to feel a little bit more myself. But what's difficult, I think, I was talking to someone about it the other day, is if you are unwell after you've had your baby and you want to get back to where you were before, that's not really going to happen, because now you're a mum and now you've got a baby. So, it's trying to sort of figure out yourself and things like doing things that you enjoy. And, I started off by volunteering. I used to work in marketing and I hadn't gone back to that because I was too unwell. And to start volunteering was a really positive step for me. And starting to do some peer support by helping other women and talking about, what I'd experienced. And then now all the various things that I do working in mental health today, I really enjoy it. So, but again, recovery is unique to everyone. But, and like I say, it can take time, but it's just making those small steps and you will get there, and you will be okay.
Yeah, and it's a very valid point that you're saying about social services. I think this is one of the things that prevent our communities from coming forward there. Yeah. That fear of social services may take the baby, can't say this, and even maybe sometimes parents are sent back home or go back home because of that fear, and maybe don't get the same treatment. They may well get good treatment back home, but maybe not the same as what you've had here. Yeah.
And I think, if you are feeling unwell, you have to be honest and you have to tell the doctor what you're feeling, because otherwise they can't, treat you as well, can they, if you're hiding some things. So it's just to try and sort of have a bit of faith in the system and try and get some support.
So we know there's a lot of support out there. You're out there. Your organisation's out there. So can we mention these websites again, and forums and online, and so that people they have their pen and paper ready now and they're able to take down.
I'd say the most important website is www.app-network.org. Loads of information on there about postpartum psychosis. What is it? Some frequently asked questions. There's some early symptoms on there as well. Links to our insider guides, which we mentioned, which also are in hard copy. Some personal stories that are on the website as well. Information on training, different books and resources, and also links to any media. So there's lots of information there. Information about if anybody wants to raise some money for the charity, any recent news, and also there's quite a lot of information on there about research as well. So that's quite interesting. But I would say go on that, and then that will also give you links to our online forum as well, which is through Health Unlocked, and that's also something else that's really useful to link to.
Brilliant. Oh, lots of information there, listeners, for you. Maybe a big topic, big words actually, anyway, that labels that topic, but something that we all need to know about. We all need to be aware of it, able to help others, able to pick up early symptoms and signs of this, so that we can help people to go to their GP, get the proper treatment there, and bring families together.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a definite light at the end of the tunnel.
There is, I think that's the most important. Like I said before, hope is such an important word. In recovery and in mental health, and and you can get better, and if you just try and ask for help.
Mm-hmm. And with that, we're going to give you a nasheed of hope, so that you can listen to this nice nasheed and think, how can I help and hope others? So listeners, think about this. Think, what can I do? What can I do to make a difference now as you're listening to the nasheed? Where can I go? And if you want more information, please email studio@unityfm.net or ring 0121 772 8892, and we will they will forward, the studio manager will forward it to us, and we'll forward it to Katie. Thank you so much, Katie, for coming today. We're going to end the show with a nice little nasheed for our listeners as a treat to them, inshallah. So listeners, do tune in to us next week, and you will hear more useful topics, inshallah, on Parenting Hour. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
وأجمل منك لم ترى قط عين وأطيب منك لم تلد النساء خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب كأنك قد خلقت كما تشاء قمر سيدنا النبي قمرون وجميل سيدنا النبي وجميل